Welcome to the Dignity of Work. Embark with us on a journey that helps today's workforce better their quality of life. Brought to you by Career Path Services. Here's your host, Doug Foresta.
Hello and welcome back to the Dignity of Work. This is Doug Foresta, and boy, what a special episode we have today. I have someone that, if you are a regular listener to the podcast, his name should come as no surprise to you. George Iranon, the former executive director and CEO of Career Path Services, is joining me today. And then also with us is Marie Bjork, and she'll talk about her role and all the different responsibilities that she had at Career Path Services. Both George and Marie were with Career Path Services for quite some time, and we're going to talk about the history of Career Path Services, some of their memories. We're going to learn a lot. I know I'm going to learn a lot. I hope you do as well. And you know, we have the 50th anniversary coming up of Career Path Services. So it's great to have you both. George, Marie, welcome.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks. So maybe, George, we can start with you. People, like I said, people I think who listen to the podcast might know you. Your voice is all over the Dignity of Work. But say a little bit about what year did you start at Career Path Services?
Well, first of all, Doug, I want to congratulate Career Path Services on its 50th anniversary. The organization began in 1971, and it's unusual for any nonprofit or any private for-profit company to last 50 years. So congratulations to the family at Career Path Services. I began in 1980 at the height of economic difficulties in our country. I worked with high school dropout youth, helping them get their GED and then find employment or go on to post-secondary education. That was a long time ago.
And now you left in a different role. So say a little bit about the different roles that you had at Career Path Services.
Well, from there, I began to take on supervisory and managerial role, served with Marie on our executive team for a number of years. I think her entire time of 30 years with us, and then 13 years as the CEO of Career Path Services until I retired after 39 years of service.
So, wow, that's amazing. And Maria, I want to make sure people know your journey as well. So you started a little bit after George, but not too much, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started in 1987. And before I really say anything else, I too want to echo George's congratulations for 50 years. That's amazing. Those of you who are working there now, I am so happy for all of you because it is a great place to work. I was hired as an accountant, and I was the only accountant. I was the whole fiscal team. And I gradually, as we hired more administrative staff and grew over the next 29 years, when I was retired, my title had changed to CFO. And I started as the accountant, and then a few months later, I was promoted to assistant director, which I think meant absolutely nothing other than a way to try to encourage me to stay, maybe. And then when we kind of shifted how titles were arranged and had gotten big enough, I held the chief financial operator role for I don't know how many years, a lot. Yeah, well, and I retired just shy of 30 years.
Yeah, so you both had long journeys within Career Path Services. So tell us a little bit about, we're going to talk about how different the world was back then in a little bit, but tell us about, what are some of your earliest memories? And maybe this time, Marie, we can start with you. What are some of your earliest memories of those early days of starting with Career Path Services? Tell us, whatever sticks out for you.
Well, we were a small organization. I think I was the number 11 employee. I replaced an accountant who had left. And we were located upstairs above a gendrance. I don't even know exactly what all they did, but it was as I said, small organization. And this was 1987, and there was one computer in the entire office, and it was in my office. And I used it, and the secretary used it, and the executive director at the time used it. And I had come from a for-profit environment, and where everybody had computers. And it was really strange because people would come into my office and turn this computer on and sit there and use it for like 10 minutes and then turn it off and leave. And it's like, okay, is this just a rule here? And so it's like, as I got more comfortable after a few days or a week even, it's like, I'm going to turn this computer on when I come into work in the morning, because I'm going to be using it on and off all day. But it was like it was this little magical being that, and that just kind of represents how the organization was. Very non-technical, very paper oriented, and that was one of the exciting things to see how things changed as we grew.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah, some of the big changes. I know for a fact there's more than one computer in the office now.
Oh yeah, probably more than one per person.
Right, exactly. George, how about for you? I mean, what are some of those? Are there any early memories that stick out in your mind?
Yes, I mean it was like yesterday. For me, my greatest memories surround the people that we worked with, our colleagues and the employees. We had people who were kind-hearted, with good intentions, but as a group, we were not yet professionalized. We were still working on the structure of the organization. We were writing policies and, a lot of that stuff. We're just trying to get organized. And one of my earliest memories was about visioning for the future. What did I want to see Career Path Services become? And most of that vision casting was around what kind of employees I wanted to see at the organization. That really shaped the way I approached hiring and training. But those early memories were full of more anecdotes of how we touched this person and how we worked together to professionalize our small nonprofit.
Well, you bring up it's a good segue into the next question I want to ask, which is about, George, you and I have had conversations on the Dignity of Work about your vision for Career Path Services. But talk a little bit, I'm sure, as you said, that evolved over time. What was the culture? I mean, you started to speak to this. What was the culture and the vision of the organization like? And this is a question for both of you. What was the culture of the organization like prior to, George, you coming in as the CEO, and we've done episodes about that, but yeah, say a little bit about that.
Well, I think we were finding ourselves. We were trying to be intentional about working together as a group. We were building a corporate culture of teamwork and professionalism. Excellence was an important ingredient in our efforts. And over time, it was more the early stages of this continuum of building this corporate culture that eventually led to 26 local, state, and national awards for being a best place to work. I mean, based on feedback from employers over decades, we were able to create a corporate culture that became a model to emulate for other nonprofits. CEOs would routinely ask me, how did you do this? What did you do? They would look for insights and principles and truths, actions, plans to create a corporate culture that they would be able to be proud of. For me, the evolution was on dreaming about a group of people, our employees, that I would be supremely proud of. And it went from an idea to a reality. I mean, I lived in a dream world of employees that inspired me, and I still hold and dear to me, you know, people that I loved working with, people like Marie.
That's beautiful. Marie, how about you?
Oh man, George. Yeah. If I cry, it's okay. I'm well known. I'm well known for that. The vision for the future was kind of twofold. It was creating that culture, that sense of teamwork, that sense of excellence and integrity, and fun. Also fun. We had a lot of fun.
We did.
And also doing that so that we could be of assistance to more people, more of our customers, our clients, the businesses, the individuals that we worked with, to help them find their own best selves. Mm. You know, I worked on the administrative side of things. So pretty much my caseload was staff and some of the customer clients that we had working in our office every now and then. And that was rich. Those were very rich experiences. And that vision of both quality and integrity and hard work and respect is not something that you just, you know, here's the formula. I mean, it's built slowly over time, a day at a time. And the culture does come from the top. And I respect George very much for that, for setting that high integrity example and goal. And yeah, I'm getting tears in my eyes, but it was an amazing experience to be part of that and to watch that happen and to watch those, you know, when George mentioned those awards, I mean, it got to be, oh yeah, of course we got another one. I mean, it was always exciting and rewarding, but the award wasn't the reward. The reward was the fact that we had that culture, and that many times these were anonymous surveys of our, you know, 80 to 100 employees, whatever it was, that gave us those rewards, and they were part of that whole, just as we were.
You both had the opportunity to watch, to work over decades. George, I know you left in 2020. 2019, not 2020. You got out before 2020. 2019. You left in 2019, and then Marie, you left not long before that, right?
2017.
And you both started in the 80s. Talk a little bit about the changes that you saw in the world, and specifically, you know, with the clients that you served, right? Did you see differences in the people that were coming in or the challenges that they faced? You know, I'm really curious about sort of what that was like, you know, to go from serving people in the 1980s to serving people in the 2000s. For either one of you. George, you could start if you want.
Well, over that time frame, you do see differences simply because we're dealing with a time frame with multi-generations. Certainly our country had gone through a number of challenges. I mean, everything from the oil shortages in the 70s into the 80s, the high interest rates and high unemployment rates in the early 80s. And then the emergence of technologies that Marie was alluding to. Certainly, we became very aware of the impact of technology in the marketplace and as a training tool, a learning tool to battle the war against poverty. And it brought new conversations about equity and justice, access to opportunities that were limited to proximity, in-person kind of opportunities were now being opened up to people through the virtual world. I think for me, one of the biggest changes was in the kind of employees we were hiring, because they were coming from, we were moving from a baby boomer dominated workforce to a Gen X, Gen Y, the millennials. So certainly those generational differences in the context of our country and the world, you know, we went through a few wars. Certainly 9/11 was an impactful time. So the context of our world through national and global events really did affect us. And I remember going through diversity training, and in the 80s, that was about being sensitive to the issues of indigenous people group. Into the 90s, where we dealt with the disabilities issues, we had certainly smatterings of race and gender equality. So I mean, all of those factors caused us to have to pivot and be very nimble and very quick about dealing with these social issues, because we saw them in both our workforce and in our customer client bases.
How about you, Marie? For you, what changes that stick out for you?
The changes. Well, first of all, George mentioned, the generational changes in our employees, in our coworkers, and that part of that was very deliberate to young it up, because we needed those fresh ideas and those fresh perspectives, and they helped. Speaking for me personally, they helped keep me having a fresher perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That was very positive. Some of the other changes that I saw were from the way funding came, and the way governments, which most of our contracts were with different kinds of governmental entities, from the federal level down to the county, and the way that they wanted to contract became different. It became more market-based, as opposed to, here, we're going to give you money and we want you to go serve these people, and you tell us how you spend it and we'll give it back to you. We'll pay you for what it cost. As opposed to things that evolved in, no, we're going to pay you for providing this service, and when there's an outcome, then we will give you the money. And so that's a very different approach to how funding works, how budgeting works, how operations work. And I believe that was a positive change. It was somewhat difficult to make those changes, just because of a difference in outlook and perspective. But it felt like things were going in the right direction.
I want to ask you both, I've asked you a little bit about, Sheriff in the early days, but we did get a chance to chat prior to doing this. And one of the things I'd ask for you to do is, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love for you to share with listeners a story, a moment, something that stuck out. I'm sure there's so many, it's hard to pick one, but for the purposes of of the podcast, to pick one, and maybe George, we could start with you. Is there a moment, a story, something that sticks out for you that you'd like to share with listeners?
Oh, we don't have enough time for all my stories, but I do have a couple of thoughts. I mean, every
Sure.
year we would have an annual employee conference. We'd bring our employees in from around the state of Washington to celebrate. We would do our 3S, food, fun, and fellowship. It was a way for us to connect our employees in person. We had about 24, 25 locations where at least one employee was stationed as their home base. And so I remember standing off to the side with Marie and others, looking over this crowd of 100, 120 people and saying to ourselves, look at how big our family has gotten, but look how well they get along. We were able to find a way to hire people who shared values, who shared a heart for service, who shared the kind of integrity and character that Marie was talking about. And we would just sit on the sidelines and watch our family interact. And it was one of those fond, heartwarming memories that I just still carry with me to this day. Another one was simply when the Seattle Business Magazine named Career Path Services as the best nonprofit to work for in the state of Washington. This is in 2013. And so Maria, I forget, we took 30 or 40 of our key employees to celebrate with us. And I remember being on stage telling these other 100 best places to work for in the state of Washington that the people standing behind me were in the next few days going to call them, because we couldn't think about a better place for our constituencies to find jobs than the best places in the state of Washington to work for. And the response that I got from our employees standing in that moment of acknowledgement was just overwhelming. They went to town and they called these employers and attempted to get job openings for our customers. That was a real highlight for me.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. How about, and I know it's hard to distill this. I know there's so many memories. Marie, how about for you?
Well, I was either going to talk about our annual conferences or our Thanksgiving dinners.
Oh, yes.
For a number of years, we worked with people with disabilities as a specific group that were targeted by the funding sources. And these were mostly people with developmental disabilities. And we had offices in, a number of locations in Eastern Washington where we served these individuals. And as part of that heart that George has spoken of, we would put on a Thanksgiving dinner for these folks and their families, usually a few days before the Thanksgiving dinner that we then went home and cooked for our own families, because many of them did not have that. They did not have that kind of a family situation. And man, we would send individuals from our corporate office. It was an honor to be selected to go, one or two from each team, and they would travel to Omak or Colville and get up at 4 a.m. and bake pies, and these were amazing experiences. I mean, up to my elbows in gravy, and then up to my elbows in dishwasher dishes. And, George was right in there with the dishes. And we sometimes had like 100 or more people that came to this all totally free dinner put on by our staff. And there were flowers on the table, and there were tablecloths, and there was the whole Thanksgiving smorgasbord, and some kind of unusual additions depending on where we were. In Moses Lake, there were the empanadas that became part of the Thanksgiving tradition. And that was a really giving, wonderful experience. And again, one of those times where you feel like you got so much more back than you gave, and was so appreciated by those families.
I'm going to ask you to do something that I know is a little hard, because George, I know you pretty well, and Maria, as I get to know you, I get the sense you're not somebody who likes to brag about yourself, but I'm going to ask you to do that a little bit as we close out here, to ask you, when you look back at your career at Career Path Services, what are you most proud of, do you think, in the terms of the time that you spent? And maybe George, we can start with you.
Well, I am most proud of the people that chose to join Marie and I in the battle against poverty through the dignity of work. The people that we had a chance to work with, the people who were willing to dedicate the rest of their career to the mission to do this war, to wage war on poverty and improve the standard of living for the people that we touch and for the communities in which we chose to do business in. I am so proud of these people that went from being employees to lifelong friends, people who I consider part of my family, and people that I love. I mean, these are people who just inspired not just me, but so many people who had a chance to get to know them, the way they made the effort to touch and change lives. I am most proud of the employees at Career Path Services, and that lasts today. And I trust it'll be the same way over the next 50 years for this amazing organization.
Marie.
Boy, I agree with George. It's the people that make up that organization that are amazing. And we used to kind of joke about, yep, they drank the Kool-Aid. It's like, so the people that we hired that stayed longer than a year were people that had decided that they fit with this expectation of hard work, of excellence, of integrity, of doing things the right way, of not being afraid to use their heart, but also you being able to use their head at the same time. And the building and creating and molding of that culture over many years is, I think, the thing I am most proud of. And that is contagious. That doesn't just impact those individuals as a workforce, as a work team. It impacts every customer that they touch, impacts every client that they work with, every business that they work with, and their own families. So it's like it's the pebble. It's the pebble that you throw in the pond, and those ripples just keep going. And I think that every person currently employed at Career Path Services is part of those ripples that keep expanding. I no longer live in Spokane, but when I did, and when I was working, I would always go places. And if somebody saw, like I had on a Career Path Services t-shirt or something, they go, "Oh man, you helped my uncle, mother, grandson, neighbor." It's over and over and over again. And that's a pretty amazing impact for a quiet little nonprofit that has grown to not so little.
Well, you really, I think you summed it up so well, Maria. That was the only other thing that I was going to say was, you said it much more eloquently than I was going to say it about the ripples in the pond. I so appreciate both of you coming on today to help the people who are doing the work today to really, to explore, what that pebble was and why you threw it. And yes, those ripples continue today, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Career Path Services. So I so appreciate. Thank you, George. Thank you, Marie, for coming on, for sharing your words of wisdom and sharing great stories and experiences with us. I hope we get to do it again another 50 years, but let's not wait that long.
Thank you, Doug. You did a lovely job setting this up for us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Doug, again, on behalf of Marie and I, we want to congratulate the board and staff and partners of Career Path Services. May you live to see success beyond your wildest dreams over the next 50 years.
Thanks for listening to an episode of The Dignity of Work. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share our episode with your network.